Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to take a look through another selection of books about books, something I'm very keen on. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay then, so the first one we're looking at is The Great American Paperback, published in 2001 in this fantastic, very large format coffee table hardback here, and it's by Richard Lupoff, who passed away a year or so ago. So really great, this one. It is predominantly American paperbacks, as it says, but it does sort of give the history of the paperback genre and the earliest sort of origins of paperbacks, right the way through all the classic eras, and then looks at different sort of genres as well. So these are the very early ones here. And so it's very much the American story, not so much the British, although obviously British publishers do get a mention. And as you can see, it's beautifully illustrated throughout, and the quality of the illustrations as well is really quite something. As you can see, these are really nice, high quality illustrations here, and it gives you a little rarity index as well. So like this one here, Nana, is like a 3-book rarity. That one, Man with the Golden Arm, is a 2-book rarity for the first, I believe, and 4 for the movie tie-in. So there you go. Wasn't that a Frank Sinatra film, as I recall? Now, it may well be that this one's actually quite a bit tricky to get down, because I bought it at the time, but I'm now surprised that it's over 20 years old. But as you can see, it really is great. And if you're a fan of the artwork, once again, Richard Lupoff was a real scholar of the American paperback, and the writing is absolutely spot on. But it's just, you see so many things like this one here, The Currents of Space. I don't know if these have been sort of enhanced by the publisher, and any little wrinkles have been taken out of the covers, or else these are some of the best condition copies you're ever likely to see. I have to suspect that possibly a little bit of restoration work has gone on. But he chooses lots of rarities, lots of great books. Moonraker there, Ian Fleming. And as you can see, it's really great. What a lovely book this one is. So I won't go through every single page, but let's flick through and you get an idea of what else is to come. As I said, they do sort of concentrate by genre later on. Some of the sleaze titles. It's not like a chronological history of the development of the paperback, more so looking at different aspects of the paperback world. I said, I really like this one. This was my sort of real introduction at the time to American paperbacks, and having just collected British ones for a couple of decades, this was a real eye-opener of what beautiful books are out there if you're willing to take a look. There's one I was looking at recently. It's a James Dean one, quite a collectible, that one. And there's the Interview with the Vampire, the first paperback of that. There's so many great ones, and whereas in a lot of times I'd be happy with the British edition, when you see the American ones as well, they did tend to have really outstanding cover artwork, and makes them equally as desirable as the British ones, I would say. There's a Delmat backs there. That's another great one there, the Body Snatchers book. Superb. Really great book. I've no idea how tricky this is going to be to get hold of a copy nowadays, and I believe it only ever came in hardback. It wasn't in a paperback edition, but this, if you can find it in hardback, this is one that I think you'll definitely want to track down, because it's a great read, and as I said, beautifully put together. So this next one isn't about paperbacks, it's actually about pulps, and it's Danger Is My Business, Lee Server, an illustrated history of the fabulous pulp magazines 1896 to 1953. So that was, you could say, an absolute fantastic period in American pulp magazines, and this book is a real beauty. Once again, it's been out quite a while. It's Chronicle Books, who've got a reputation for publishing absolutely beautiful books, and just trying to see when this one's actually published. I think it's at least 20 years old, so let's flick through. But as you can imagine, this is, as I said, quite a comprehensive, wordy history of the American pulp market, science fiction, horror, all the ones that we love. Absolutely fantastic in here, and it was the first real book of its kind that did it in this sort of detail, and absolutely beautifully presented, as you can see. Chronicle books generally are excellent. As I said, it's a really, really sort of detailed study of the pulps, and it's an area which, although I don't think I'd ever go down collecting them, I do enjoy sort of reading about their history, and a lot of the very greatest stories in the pulps by the bigger authors have sort of been collected now in like huge omnibus editions, which is perhaps a better way to actually read them. Actually handling pulps nowadays, it just doesn't agree with me, and I just don't like the feel of them, whereas paperbacks from this sort of period I'm still fine with. It's just the pulpiness of the paper doesn't sort of agree with me. But if you're a fan of the fantastic covers, and the Weird Tales in particular are really, really something, that's obviously an absolute classic, then you'll enjoy this book. And I think this one's quite easy to get hold of, so I don't think you'll have any trouble getting this one. But yeah, it's at least 20 years old, probably a bit more than that, I would think, by now. But it doesn't matter, because the actual contents is historical, so when it was published is almost irrelevant. But yeah, recommended this one. Danger Is My Business by Lee Server. Okay, so this next one here is Cinerama, another hardback book, and these are looking at the sleaze paperbacks, American sleaze paperbacks from the 1960s. Once again, I bought this one when it came out, but astonishingly, I'm surprised to see 2005 was the published date. So we are looking at a book that's almost 20 years old now. So it is pretty much what it says on the cover. It's not by any one particular author. There's an editor, but there's lots of great contributors who are known on the scene, including Robert Silverberg, Lynn Monroe, real either collectors, dealers, or authors, and we'll flick through, but it's profusely illustrated. It looks at the different publishing houses. There's an appreciation of some of the fantastic cover art. Not always great, but there's some fantastic cover art in here. And obviously I need to be quite careful. But if you look at that artwork on the front there, these are pieces of history. Just some of them obviously absolutely hilarious by today's standards, of course, but even so, this was big business in its day. And if you're a paperback collector, you're bound to have come across a few over the years, and there are plenty of collectors of them. Ones like these by Clyde Allison, incredibly collectible nowadays, the Agent 0008 series. So it's worth having a little bit of knowledge of these. And yeah, you'll see these Dr. Death ones, also very, very nice. Robert Bonfils covers. He's a very, very collectible artist. So you get the idea. It's a comprehensive look at the sleaze business, which was part of paperback history. And as I said, it's a really, really great, but I do believe this did get a paperback at some point. But it's also quite tricky to track down today. Copies are a little bit expensive, but I think it's worth it. Now, this next one here only got published last year. It's by Ryan Hughes, Reagans and Rocket Ships, and this is vintage science fiction book cover art. And this is fantastic. This was easily the best book about books that got published last year, and it's so comprehensive. It's just fantastic. If you haven't picked this one up, it's still readily available, you'll be pleased to hear, and absolutely stacked with beautiful covers here. I have done that sort of a full review of this one, so I'll link to that one in the description at the end and down below. But just great, as you can see. And yeah, I couldn't believe just how good this one was. As I said, everything's in full colour. I can't help thinking that if this particular book was in a much bigger format hardback, although the price would have been a lot more, it just would have been even more outstanding. But this one here definitely deserves a place on your bookcase, and I for one was really impressed with this one. Just fantastic. Yeah, superb. It's just fun looking for some of the books that you've got, and some that just didn't even know existed, and they're across all the sort of the predominantly British publishers. Really great. Badgers there, so good, eh? Yeah. If you're a fan of this sort of stuff, you're just going to absolutely love this. So it comes with my highest recommendation. Absolutely superb. Yes, Reagans and Rocket Ships by Ryan Hughes. Superb book. You've got to get that one. Now, this next one is a book about Penguin Books history. Now, this was edited by Steve Hare. Now, Steve used to be the editor of the Penguin Collectors Society magazine. Sadly, passed away just a handful of years ago now, but an incredibly nice chap. And this book, well, when it came out, I was just so impressed with it. So much so that I bought 2 copies. And this is my, unread one. My other copy has literally been read about 6 or 7 times. It is, I consider, that good. It's one of the best books about the history of Penguin that you're likely to find. So it concentrates on the early period, 35 to 70, and this one was published for Penguin's 60th anniversary in 1995. So what happened was Steve had access to the Penguin archive, and each book in the Penguin archive has its own sort of box file, and he was able to go through and pull out correspondence between the Penguin editors, hence the title, and in a lot of cases the authors. And there's great back and forth about cover design and during the war bringing books to print, and the troubles that they had doing that. There's chapters on each of the different sorts of characters from Penguin's early days, the different editors, and how the war really did interfere with what was a publishing phenomenon back in 1935. It's just a great book. My favourite 2 chapters on it are how they brought Hiroshima by John Hershey to print, which was originally published in the New Yorker. That was a great chapter. And also the back and forth between John Wyndham and Penguin about the cover design for the Penguin edition of Dare the Triffids, which the actual Triffid on the front was designed by Wyndham himself. So, as I said, it's a great book. It's not exactly fully illustrated or anything, but it doesn't need to be. This is just a compulsive read, and if you've never read it yet you're a fan of Penguin books, you definitely need to pick a copy of this one up, because it's just great. And although it's out of print now, copies are fairly plentiful, and you shouldn't have too much trouble tracking one down. So the last book we're looking at today is Undercover, an illustrated history of American mass market paperbacks by Thomas L. Bonn. Now, this is published by Penguin in the USA, and it's by far the oldest book that we're looking at today, 1982. So quite an ancient one here, 41 years old. But the reason I've got this, and I think you might want to track a copy down, and that won't be too difficult, I don't think, it's just because it sort of goes right up to date. It goes through the 70s and into the 1980s, which some of the books don't do. It's right up to the most up to date. So it's got the very earliest origins. Here we are. Similar sort of format with the Albatross books there, the Touchnits and the Penguins. And it works its way up sort of chronologically through the history. Now, there are colour sections, but as you can see, it's almost like a forerunner to the Great American Paperback, the way that it's laid out. And in fact, some of the books are in fact repeated in both books. But that's because it's the first time, I believe, that this was really the sort of history of the paperback was put onto print. Now, around the same time, Virgin published a book called it's by Piet Schroders. It's the history of paperbacks, and that's going to be on our next look about books. So I haven't forgotten about that one, because it is an absolute key book. But this one covers a lot of the same ground, but from an American point of view rather than a European one. Now, as I said, it does have some colour sections here, and it doesn't, because of when this was published, it doesn't obviously cover books that were very expensive. There are expensive books here, the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, for example, but there's others which are not what you might expect, and it puts sort of the paperback, or the mass market paperback, into context, really. Stuff like the Thornbirds there, which was fairly new at the time. This is quite interesting. So lots of different editions of Lost Horizon by James Hilton. That was that the very first, or one of the very earliest pocket books, and one of the very earliest Pan over here as well. Now look at the different sort of publishers. A little potted history on each one. This may be all you need, and as I said, being historical, it's not like the information is incorrect, because it's not. It's history. It's a lovely one there, The Daughter of Fu Manchu. I would very much like to get that one. And some classic Avons, and these are fairly plentiful nowadays, the Avon ones, as are the Ballantine SF titles, which I absolutely love. So there you are. quite a nice little look at the paperback scene, and as I said, it goes right up to the 80s as well. So worth tracking this one down. It might take a little bit of time, but if you do find it, I don't think it's going to be that sort of difficult to to find, and it won't be expensive for you to actually buy a copy, But yeah, good stuff. Not bad, that one at all. So there you go. I hope you liked that little selection this time round of more books about books. Certainly a subject I absolutely love. Now, I've got enough to do yet another one of these, which I'll do in another month or so's time. Until then, thanks very much for watching today. If you did enjoy the video, do please give it that thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content. And I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.